Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. If you could just walk through some introductions and let us know how many years you spent as executive director with NARAL, that would be fantastic.
Sure. My name is Jenny Blasdell. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I was the executive director of NARAL Pro Choice Maryland from May of 2008 through the end of December 2010.
Fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit more about the political environment at the time that you were an executive director? What kind of issues were you dealing with and facing with?
Um, so at the time that I was the executive director, we had a lot of great champions and supporters in the Maryland legislature, but it was very difficult to move proactive legislation, especially around abortion and abortion access through the legislature. So one of the things we did when I was executive director was we took a close look at local governments and if that could be a place to push for proactive policies. And we ended up advocating and helping to pass two provisions around crisis pregnancy centers, so-called crisis pregnancy centers, requiring certain disclosures and information about their services be provided to prospective clients. And those were enacted in the Baltimore City Council and the Montgomery County Council, and they were the first types of laws of their kind to be enacted in the entire country. Was really proud of the work we did around that.
That's fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit more about, what strategies did you guys use to enact those provisions, and what tools did you use?
So the organization had been doing investigations of crisis pregnancy centers in Maryland for a few years. We were able to meet with supportive legislators in Baltimore City and Montgomery County and explain our findings. We had a lot of great volunteers and activists who did a great deal of public education about crisis pregnancy centers at local festivals and through outreach through our website, events that we had. And a lot of our volunteers testified in person for both of those bills and provisions, and they were eventually enacted and signed into law. They were challenged by I think the archdiocese were the ones that challenged it. Ultimately, they were not allowed to go into effect, but I'm really proud of the work that our supporters and volunteers and staff did to really help educate people about the truth of crisis pregnancy centers and what kind of services they do and do not provide.
So, Jenny, could you tell us a little bit more about CPCs and why they were such an issue in Baltimore when you were working against them specifically?
So so-called crisis pregnancy centers generally outnumber abortion providers. And we had done an investigation examining the types of services and the types of advertisements that were being used in crisis pregnancy centers across the state of Maryland. And what we found was they were not really forthcoming about their services. And they were giving out deceptive information about abortion and contraception. And alarmingly, even if somebody requested or wanted a referral for abortion or contraception, that generally wasn't available. And for somebody looking for time-sensitive medical care, that's just a huge burden to have to overcome, to spend time going to one of these centers and then find out that they're not going to give you the information that you need or want. And I was really proud of the work that we did with our partners, our supporters, our volunteers, our staff, our coalition partners, to educate lawmakers about the dangers of so-called crisis pregnancy centers and pass some policies that were designed to protect against that. And even though the policies eventually were not allowed to go into effect by the courts, still the education that we were able to do and the awareness that we were able to raise was really important, I think, to the state of Maryland and our members.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And just to end our interview, I would love to learn a little bit more about what reproductive freedom means to you now, and if that outlook changed during your tenure, or if it's kind of stayed the same throughout your lifetime.
I think reproductive freedom really means to me the ability to make decisions that are deeply personal and rooted in your self-determination and autonomy. And I think it looks a little bit different to me now than it did then. I gave birth to my first child towards the end of my tenure at NARAL Pro-Choice Maryland. And being a parent has, just driven that point home to me over and over again that um, my autonomy and ability to make decisions is really important, and the ability of my children to make those decisions, both as young people and eventually when they're adults. I really want them to be able to live their fullest, most authentic lives, and reproductive freedom is integral to that.
Okay, Jenny. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today and just sharing your perspective on, serving as an executive director for NARAL and also your perspective on reproductive freedom and what that means to you now. So thank you so much for meeting with me.
Oh, thanks.